Hey guys, I'm going to help you out with lesson 12's homework today. And let's go ahead and let's get started and look at number 1. It says complete the number sentence by expressing each part using hundredths. Model using the place value chart as shown in part A. So in part A, they had 1/10 here and then moved it over to the hundredths place in 10 tenths to show that 1/10 and 8 hundredths altogether is 18 hundredths if you counted them in the hundredth spot. So here on B, it says you have 3 hundredths and 2 tenths. So if I move each one of those tenths to the hundredth spot, I will get 10 for each one of those. So there's 10 for that 1/10. Here's another 10 for the other tenth. So altogether, that's 10, 20, 23 tenths altogether. Okay, on part C, we have 1/10 and 14 hundredths. So I'm going to put all those 14 hundredths down here. So that's 10. And then the 4, and then when I move that tenth over, that's going to give me 10 more hundredths. So altogether it would be, here's 10, here's another 10, so 20, and then those 4 would give me 24 hundredths. Okay, we're going to do the same thing, but without the chart. So let's look at A, 1/10 plus 2 hundredths. Well, that 1/10 is 10 hundredths plus the 2 hundredths would give you 12. So basically you're converting the tenths to hundredths before you add. 4 tenths would be the same as 40 hundredths, plus that 11 hundredths would give you 51 hundredths. 8 tenths is the same thing as 80 hundredths, plus that 25 hundredths will give you 105 hundredths. Then you have 43 hundredths, and 6 tenths, which would be 60 hundredths. When you add it together, you get 103 hundredths. Alright, moving on to the next section. Number 3, it says find the sum, convert tenths to hundredths as needed, write your answer as a decimal. So we're going to start off with this first one, 3 tenths plus 7 hundredths. Well, 3 tenths is the same thing as 30 hundredths. So 30 hundredths plus 7 hundredths will give you 37 hundredths. And as a decimal, that would be 0.37. Okay, on part B, we have 16 hundredths plus 5 tenths. Well, 5 tenths is going to be the same as 50 hundredths. So 50 plus 16 will give you 66 hundredths. And as a decimal, that would be 0.66. Okay, part C, we have 5 tenths plus 40 hundredths. Well, 5 tenths is the same thing as 50 hundredths. Talked about that before, plus the 40 hundredths, which will give you 90 hundredths altogether, which as a decimal would be 0.9 or 0.90. Alright, part D, we have 20 hundredths plus 8 tenths. Well, 8 tenths is going to be 80 hundredths. So when I add the 20 and the 80, I'll get 100 hundredths, which is the same thing as 1 whole, or just 1. Okay, number 4, you're going to solve and write the answer as a decimal. So we have 5 tenths plus 53 hundredths. Well, again, I'm going to change those tenths into hundredths. So 5 tenths is the same thing as 50 hundredths plus 53 hundredths, which would give me 103 hundredths, which we know is more than a whole. So I could pull 100 hundredths out, which would be 1, and we'd have 3 hundredths left over. So as a decimal, that would be 1.03, 1 3 hundredths. Okay, part B says 27 hundredths plus 8 tenths. Well, 27 hundredths plus 80 hundredths, because that's what 8 tenths is, will give you 107 hundredths, which is the same thing as 1 7 hundredths, or 1.07. Okay, we have 4 tenths plus 78 hundredths, so 4 tenths is 40 hundredths plus 78 hundredths would give you 118 hundredths, which would be 1 18 hundredths, which is 1.18. Then on part D, we have 98 hundredths plus 7 hundredths, or 7 tenths, which is the same thing as 70 hundredths. And when I add those together, I'm going to get 168 hundredths, which would be 1 68 hundredths when I take out that whole, which would be 1.68. Alright, number 5, Cameron measured 65 hundredths inch of rainwater on the first day of April. On the second day of April, he measured 83 hundredths inch of rainwater. How many total inches of rainwater did Cameron measure on the first 2 days of April? So to take these two numbers and add them together, so I'm going to say 65 hundredths of an inch plus 83 hundredths of an inch. And when I add those together, if I add 65 and 83, and if you can't do that off the top of your head, you could write it off to the side, but I got 148 hundredths. So over here, if I said 65 plus 83, 5 plus 3 would give me 8, 6 plus 8 would give me 14. So you get 148 hundredths, which would be like 1 48 hundredths, or 1.48 inches of rain. Alright guys, if you have questions, let me know.